Hi, I'm Alix Paultre, and I'm here at the Things Conference in Amsterdam with Josh Cox, and he's with Oxit. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's not my show, but I'm glad to be the person to say hi. Welcome here.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here.
Well, is this your first show, second? How many shows have you been to?
So this will be our third show. So participated in person, then virtually, and now we're here with a booth and doing some keynote speeches and having a good time. So
you've seen some of the progression in the development of the organization over time.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been in the LoRaWAN market space since Semtech actually first acquired the LoRaWAN technology. Was that 8-9 years ago?
Right. Now, you said you did a keynote. What was the keynote about?
Yeah, so we primarily focused on product design for success. So, if you will, in the sales world, we say it's how many no's till you get that yes, right? In hardware, it's how many revisions and software until you get it right. But part of getting a product to success is failing early, fail often, fail cheaply. So we gave a kind of a talk around the pitfalls and certainly the all the difficulties you can run into and helping clients avoid that if they can and that process. So
could you give me, say, for example, a top 3 of some of the issues, challenges, bottlenecks that we're facing here?
Yeah, so the ones I like to hone in on is typically trying to navigate that early decisions when you're trying to select a microcontroller. With LoRaWAN, right, you've got the module vendors, you've got the SIP packages, you can go discrete, how all that impacts, but how do you make a good decision? And what's the difference between a good decision for a well-funded company and someone who's on a shoestring budget? And those decisions are a little different because when you're on that shoestring budget, you can't call up the module vendor and say, I'm having trouble. And so helping try to navigate those kinds of things. Looking at firmware over-the-air updates. And so if you're a company trying to deploy at mass hundreds of thousands of devices, I talked about, that can sound like a celebration until your firmware engineer walks in and says, boss, we got a major bug in those 100,000 devices we just shipped. What are we going to do? So you could turn a great moment into a catastrophe without the right building blocks in place. And I think the last is just looking at probably energy conservation and how that's not just a firmware engineer's job. It's a business logic question around how often should I transmit? It's hardware engineer's job to pick the right components and make sure the sensor's not on all the time. And it's the firmware engineer's job to make sure that device is going into the deep sleep and leveraging ADR, adaptive data rate, and some of those things.
And it's all a gestalt, right? A modern device is like a live animal now. You can't just take a piece out of it and have it continue to function.
Yep. It takes a team, it takes an army to pull this stuff off. So.
Now, what are some of the bottlenecks you're seeing in not just wireless, but LoRa development? Are there issues that you see crop up regularly, or is it a case of everyone has their own problems trying to employ these technologies?
No, if you look at it broadly speaking, I think the market tends to just bite off more than it can chew when you approach a problem. So it's not leveraging the skills and effort that's been put in. If you look at this room, there are millions and millions of man hours put in to creating these different pieces and parts of the solution. So, it's take advantage of those and leverage those technologies. So, some people decide to run their own network server instead of leveraging TTI and TTN. These guys have obviously learned some lessons. Why not take that and leverage it? But we see so many companies, they jump in, they're going to run their own LNS, and they're going to get chirp stack, and they're going to design their own RF front end, and they're going chip down, and they're going to design their own mobile application. And while you can do that, most of the real challenges for any business to succeed is about the businesses adopting your ideas. Go test that and make sure that's going to work too. So there's this extreme focus on it from a technology perspective, but not a broader focus on let's go prove this business model, make sure we can make some money, and then let's go optimize for cost and bring that cost down.
Right. Well, when you think about that, Josh, right? In one sense, the fact that this is a community and an ecosystem helps some of those issues. Do you think that LoRaWAN community is better suited to deal with those kinds of issues than, say, for example, maybe larger ecosystems that the members don't necessarily talk to each other as directly?
No, I 100% agree. I think the community here is the only reason this technology is showing the growth that it's showing and continues to show it. This is a special community in my opinion, right? I'm surrounded by all sorts of different technologies and participate in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and Wi-Sun and these other communities. And I think a lot of them would be would give anything to have this sort of gathering of different competitors coming together, if you will, to talk about how we're going to move it forwards and what we can do. And there's so many people here solving different elements of the problem, trying to help push and propel this industry forward. So I'm excited about this community, but I think it's an important distinguishment of the other technology. I think it's what makes LoRaWAN special.
And I agree completely. So let's take it another step. Let's talk about a little bit of a scenario here. I walk into your building, I have an idea. How often do you have to temper those ideas to match the reality of the hardware you're trying to implement in?
Yeah, so we have a process called a deep dive, which is kind of where we sit down. One of the most important pieces of any process is creativity. So, you create a lot of ideas, and then you converge on the good ones, and then you go test those ideas, and you converge on the ones that work. And so it'll allow the creative process to be just that, creative. A lot of times the best ideas come, I think, from supporting bad ideas. An idea might walk in the door and you think it's terrible, but be willing to be creative and support it, and it can just trigger another good idea. And that's kind of infectious, where you'll actually find that good idea is buried deep in a bad idea that someone throws out. So one of my rules is always write your idea out, because you'll just keep noodling on it and you can't move on. But allow other people to try to support those ideas. So most of our clients that come in with ideas and things of that nature, we take them through that process. Let's get creative. Where are we going in 5 years? All the crazy things we could do. We could use image recognition. We can do this. We could do that. And then we start to narrow that in. What do we need to be successful? What are we trying to accomplish in the next 90 days, the next 6 months? So it's just a process of being creative and then converging on what are our goals? What are we trying to accomplish? So I like to say, what are we trying to do, not how? A lot of people in this room tend to focus on the how first and not what, so that's important for me, is to say, what are we trying to solve, not how?
That makes a lot of sense. And but then again, these are engineers, right? So there's going to eventually come a point where you have to deal with the how. How much direct engineering support do you have to provide your clients, and how much of it is just giving them good advice, good information, and guidance?
Yeah, so Oxit's in the engineering services company. So we do hardware, firmware, cloud, and application. We're focused on LoRaWAN, so we're the expert in typically helping customers guide. It's not where's the stack today, it's where's the standard going tomorrow. Who's got a solution today? Who's going to have a solution tomorrow? That's the things you get by bringing us into the room and helping guide and navigate those things. But when you bring for us, our clients are typically looking at us to help them navigate problems. We bring in and complement their engineering team. So most of our clients have full-blown engineering staff, but we may be helping them on the firmware, we're helping on the hardware, or some combination of both. What do they need and how can we help? But broadly speaking, we're helping them understand the market from a technical position and helping them find and build for tomorrow. A good example of that, right? You got firmware over there updates, you got device to device. Device to device is relatively new to the LoRaWAN standard. We've been doing it for 3 years. But nonetheless, right, if you're developing a new product, 6 months ago, you would have liked to know that the standard was going to come out with D2D in it and probably try to, hey, let's take advantage of this. Even though it's not in the standard yet, it's going to be, versus going out and creating it from scratch because your developer didn't see it in the standard. Right, so these kinds of things are the gaps that we try to fill and helping companies navigate their development to build for tomorrow.
Now, when you think about all of these different spaces, obviously, we're hearing a lot about industrial Internet of Things and some other verticals. Are there any hot verticals you can think of when it comes to LoRaWAN?
We certainly see the utility space, water monitoring and metering as a very hot one, and continues to be growing in North America. We're a little behind in North America to some of the use cases seen over here across the pond. But I think we're looking at the adoption growing on all fronts pretty rapidly. There's a couple that are growing a little hotter: transportation, asset tracking, and things of that nature. But overall, almost every category is growing. So,
got it. So now, when you think about it, right, and because of the nature of helping these people fix their problems, was there an application that you encountered that surprised you? Like, wow, I didn't think that would be feasible, or you thought, wow, that's an interesting idea. Tell us about something that you've come across that give our audience a little bit of perspective there.
Yeah, well, I'll give you two real quick. One that I'm very passionate about right now, we're working on. It's called the Utility Reference Platform, and it's around command and control for natural gas. So in America, we mandate smoke alarms, we mandate carbon monoxide alarms, but we're pumping in explosive gas, and we don't mandate any monitors for those. So we're working with ecosystem partners and developing sensors that go in the house to detect natural gas, as well as meters with integrated valves. So you got a gas leak, it's going to cause it to shut off. And I think that's just really cool, because you look in a home today, carbon monoxide, you got to run outside. Smoke, you got to run out, or fire, you got to run outside or try to put it out. This is going to detect it and solve it. And I just think that's really cool, right? You're going to detect the presence and shut that thing off. It's just cool. On the weird and neat side is just looking at how we're taking, I've seen technology get actually deployed inside of animals and stuff of that nature. So monitoring for fevers and all sorts of just wild things that are starting to, use cases around when you have this range, how can you start to deploy it in weird ways to be, generate data and things of that nature. So I would say digestible sensors is one of those kind of, unique situations. So
very cool. So now, what's next? Where are you going? How do you see it expanding, developing?
Yeah, well, personally at Oxit, we're very invested in looking forward to continued growth here, and we're leaning into this and in a big way. I see this as just now starting to actually tick up in popularity. We're seeing mass adoption of networks within the last year. We've seen, helium networks. We've seen AWS Sidewalk really starting to they're going to be turning on soon. And we're looking at all these massive networks, and this idea of a network out there that we can leverage is really important. But we're also seeing that everywhere, right? The CAT-Ms, the cellular guys, they're also deploying these IoT networks. So the IoT growth is going to continue to be fueled, and I think we're really at the very bottom of what's the knee in the curve towards the adoption and growth. COVID kind of kicked us off a little early with the adoption, I think, and then the labor shortage has also kept us looking for unique solutions to help. How do we do as much with less labor staff? But at the end of the day, the adoption's going to continue, especially as we as engineers make technology easier to integrate into our life. And when it looks like magic, it starts to be adopted quicker. And I think LoRaWAN really does look like magic, right? You turn that sensor on in your house, and data just starts showing up on your mobile phone. And you're like, well, I didn't type in a Wi-Fi. I didn't type in anything. I didn't pair to it. How is this happening? That's magic, right? And that's what a ubiquitous network can create for us. So I look forward to just seeing technology look more like magic, just work out of the box, turn it on, things just happen. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Paging Arthur C. Clarke.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
Well, no, I haven't let you go yet.
Sorry.
No. See, because I got information. No, actually, because I wanted to ask you at least one more question before letting you go at this event. You know, and I realized it was sound, but I always get my last question in.
Go for it.
When you think about the ecosystem and you think about what we're trying to do you see further integration going forward? Because today a device has got to be multimodal, multilingual, multi-everything, multi-protocol. Do you see LoRa rising in the ranks, as it were, and possibly becoming more of a de facto standard within the IoT support ranks?
My personal ambition and what I think it's going to see is you'll see more roll-up. I think you're going to see, I would love to see LoRaWAN become part of the Matters. I know not everyone maybe agrees with that kind of concept, but I think Matters is trying to solve an interesting problem. And when I look at what could be done there, if you started to mend those two and blur those lines, is really gets back to that. How are we going to create a network that's truly just powerful and works and helps us all add devices and leverage all the benefits of all these different protocols in the different situations. So I look for more kind of roll up and trying to bring these things closer as the way forward.
Integrated cohesion.
Yeah, exactly. Because the fragmentation is just going to slow us down. We need that fragmentation to get the steam up and to let the innovation flourish. And then once it flourishes, you start to see them kind of start to cohese together. And I think that's the path forward. So that's what I look forward to. I'm not saying that's an easy road, and I certainly don't want to see it get done in the wrong way. But that's what I look forward to. I think that's the right way forward.
Well, Josh, just to add on to that point real quick, when you think about, you could be co-compatible, like Wi-Fi 6 and LoRa. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to get rid of everything, but it just has to, everything's got to be able to communicate together at a more fundamental level, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the silicon vendors now, though, they're starting to recognize that they need 2.4 and they need sub-gigahertz in the same packages. So you're starting to see more and more of this come out of our silicon vendors, right? Even from Semtech, the LR1110, 2.4, 900, but several other vendors are going to start to follow suit, right? So they're recognizing that the value of having at least the ability to support multi-protocol is important. Wi-Fi is going to be the same thing, right? Eventually, we're just going to see this kind of, what you'll see is devices that are multi-protocol, able to support different things in different scenarios. When you're close proximity, different technology is useful. When you're far away, different technology is useful. When you need high throughput, different technology is useful. So as you start to balance that, though, too, what's interesting about our devices is they may need things or take advantage of what's there when they can use it, right? So yeah, when I'm really close, I want to be able to send a ton of data and tell you all the things that have happened. But when I'm really far away, it'd be nice to just report what I'm doing right now, so that you at least have some input. And so
Housekeeping.
Exactly. So I see that kind of continuing to grow in how devices will operate in that context. So
Very cool, Josh. Do you have any final words for our audience before we let you go today?
no, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Happy to help with your engineering services needs. So check us out on oxit.com. We've been in the LoRaWAN space for quite a while. So firmware, hardware, cloud, application development, and LoRaWAN's what we do. So.
Very cool. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us
Let's
today.
try
I
that
really
handshake
appreciate it.
again.
Yeah,
All
there
right.
we go.
Perfect.
Thanks. And everybody, don't forget our next one. Well, no, don't go anywhere. We're still closing out here
I
for
got
our
you.
audience.
I'm bad about this.
And our next person is going to be Vitaly Demasovich from Arrow and talking about LoRaWAN devices and partnerships.